Hey nerds, we are going to do a review and breakdown of Dune Prophecy, Episode 2, starting now. Welcome to the Nerd Social. I am Colin. So, the title of Episode 2 is Two Wolves and is written by Elizabeth Padden and Cor Adana and is directed by John Cameron. The spoiler-free logline of this episode is after receiving word about the events on Salusa Secundus brings Theodosia to the Imperial House to help manage the situation. Meanwhile, a reluctant Tula enlists Lila for a vital mission. So my spoiler-free thoughts about this second episode is that the pace of the story picks up dramatically. Whereas in episode 1, the car was going as though you were watching the scenery and having a nice time. But episode 2 is like driving a race car in Fast and Furious. It was that intense. The second thing is that HBO does as HBO because there's a very hot and steamy scene and you think that you're watching Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon in space. And of course, through all that hot and steaminess, you definitely get to see some of the machinations that are happening, the honesty that comes about from it, and also the two that are doing it, what their intentions are. There's also very intriguing storylines of all the characters, not just them two, and how they fit into the larger picture and to the Dune movies overall. It's like one of the characters said that they were all pieces on a chessboard, and it's very interesting that they made that analogy straight up because that's what the audience feel like as well. You also wonder if the sisterhood is good or bad. It really depends on who you ask, but it seems that one character can cut through all of that facade and find out their true intentions. Right. In terms of rating, I would give this episode a 9 out of 10, which is a movie marathon. I think that there's a lot of moving the story along is quicker than any of the television shows that I've seen this year. I was really taken aback by all the juicy details that just appeared in this episode. And it makes a lot of sense because Dune Prophecy is scheduled to only have 6 episodes. So they really have to move the story along. They can't just drag it out for say 10 episodes or for 8 episodes. I get to see that in some of the other reviews I've done on TV programs, the 8-episode ones, the 10-episode ones, the middle ones tend to be, or near the end, they tend to be not so good, almost disengaged at times. Whereas this one, it seems as though they're just going to go right to the point of the story, which is what I like. And then don't just drag it out for dragging out's sake just to hit a quota. I think that the story should be how the story runs, no matter how many episodes you have. So those are my spoiler-free thoughts, but if you like what we have to say about Dune Prophecy, please like, share, subscribe. We really appreciate your support, and we are growing as a channel, so thank you for subscribe on YouTube as well as following on Facebook. Without further ado, spoilers ahead. We start off with the aftermath of episode 1, and we saw that Pruitt, the young prince, was dead by burning by Desmond, and they pretty much showed that in episode 1. And then you also see here that Sister Kasha was also killed by the same method that Pruitt was killed as well. And of course, we definitely know that it's Desmond, but we don't know how it happened, because it was very far away when Kasha was killed, whereas Pruitt was very close, right next to Desmond when that happened. That's still a mystery, and it really didn't get revealed as to how he was able to do it. And also the sisterhood was inconclusive in their findings as to what happened to Kasha, but they knew that she was burned from the inside. So imagine all the organs being burned inside of you, which was probably very awful way to die. Then Valya made the very executive decision for her to go to the heart of the Imperium, which is Salusa Secundus, along with Theodosia. And we don't know what Theodosia's role is yet. It didn't really get to any type of reveal here in episode 2 about it, but it seems as though she wanted someone by her side so that she can execute all of her plans that she needed to do. Now, remember from episode 1 that Valya really wanted to have control of the Imperium through Yanez, and Yanez was going to be part of the Sisterhood because of all the events that has happened with Pruitt. That has been placed on hold for the moment. And she's basically trying to do damage control and also trying to, again, from the spoiler-free part, ascertain what the heck is going on with the murders that happened. We then see Desmond here admitting to the fact that he did kill Pruitt, and the Emperor is just shell-shocked and doesn't know what he wants to do with this guy. And Desmond is also very loyal to the Imperium, and the Emperor was asking him again and again, like, where your loyalties lie? What are you trying to accomplish with this? And he just comes to the answer that I'm trying to serve the Imperium, which really is very strange. And the Emperor is very skeptical as to whether or not he's telling the truth. Of course, he doesn't have a truthsayer to really figure out if he's telling the truth or not. And he also committed a murder in his palace. So the only thing that he could do politically, and to not upset Ferdinand, the boy's father, is to basically say, you're going to go to prison. So that's where he was held most of the time. But it seems as though the Empress disagreed with that tactic. And later on, we will see how his wife gets involved with this political maneuvering later on and the consequences of that coming. So there's definitely some tension between the Emperor and Empress, and we saw that tension back in episode 1, and it definitely opens it up for Desmond to swoop in to further divide them in episode 2. Here we see that Tula is then left in charge of the Sisterhood, and Valya has a very interesting request for Tula to follow through on. And they both know that Lila is a very special acolyte of the Sisterhood. And because of that, Valya was asking Tula to make sure that Lila goes through the agony, which is an invasive procedure where the poison is taking over the body, and therefore you can have some premonitions, you can speak to the dead. We saw a little bit of that same blue liquid from the Dune movies, where we can see all the different past Reverend Mothers. We saw that with Rebecca Ferguson's character, that she was able to see all the Mother Superiors' past lives. And definitely a very interesting premise, because we did see that in the movies. Now we're seeing it here in this episode. We then get to see Tula's relationship with Lila and how it's a very surrogate mother relationship. The truth is then revealed to Lila that she is the great-great-granddaughter of Raquella, who is the previous Mother Superior. And so Lila is very special because she is connected to the former Mother Superior. And so Tula is trying to ask Lila to see if you can communicate with her through the agony. And that's the half of the premise of this episode, is trying to convince her to do that. However, she is torn because it's a huge decision. She just found out that she has some past lineage that she didn't have any idea about. And she has this great potential to speak with the Mother Superior, more so than any other people that are there, including Valya and Tula. And that also leads to the doubts, because Sister Jen here, we saw her in episode 1 being the anti-establishment person. She's very radical. She's always against the grain. And she's trying to tell Lila that they're not looking out for you. You got to be able to look out for yourself and for your fellow sisters. It's not looking out for the sisterhood. And so that was a very interesting line that she said during the episode. On the other hand, you have Sister Emmeline, who is much more an advocate of Lila trying to go through the agony, because she thinks that it's a way for Lila to achieve martyrdom for a greater cause. And so definitely much more idealistic. And then I think that she comes at it at a very naive point of view, and also from a selfish point of view, because I believe that she is an acolyte of Dorothea, who's the sister that was killed by Valya some time ago. Lila then makes her decision to go into the agony and she was able to find some truths out, and then through her, Tula was able to find out some harsh truths about what has happened. But unfortunately, Lila gets trapped with all the zombified individuals that's in this dead world, and then she falls into a coma. And so Lila, unfortunately, was trying to look for her mother, and her mother was not there. And I think it was her grandmother who basically said that she was not there, and she is basically lost into a coma type state. On the flip side, what was happening on the Salusa Secundus is that Kieran Atreides, he's not only the sword master to Yanez, he is also a double agent. And so he has been trying to figure out a way to ungrapple the hold that the great houses have on spice. And so he is trying to fight on the insurgent side to break up that monopoly of spice between all the great houses. We then get to see here that Yanez resisted his advances because we saw in episode 1 that they were getting very hot and heavy. And so Yanez was pointing out the fact that was a one-time deal. We can never be together. It would be very complicated if we were both together because of the fact that she's still in mourning and that she had an affair with him. Little that she know that he also has his secrets. And Yanez also talked about how she and her brother Constantine were kidnapped in the past. And so that led to some very traumatic experiences with her father, not being very committed to their survival. We then get to see a very grieving father, Ferdinand. He is, throughout this episode, very upset at the Emperor, trying to get him to comply. And knowing that he has leverage over the Emperor because of the fleet of ships, and these fleet of ships will support his dealings on Arrakis. And so he has held that over him the entire episode until Desmond then came in with the advice from the Empress to try to turn the tables on Ferdinand. And what happened was that Desmond, by indirect orders of the Emperor, which he did do once already, now he's doing it again, where he's burning his insides up. Now, he didn't die, but it was almost a way for him to be forced into compliance because he was being very insubordinate of the Emperor. And so people were viewing the Emperor as being a very weak individual. So this was his way to reestablish his power and also give kudos to the Empress for seeing that and making sure that Ferdinand falls in line. The last couple of scenes we see is the bartender. The bartender happens to be a sister, and her name is Sister Michaela. And so here she is talking with Valya to, again, we can see why Valya is very important because she's playing both sides of this tension between the insurgents and the great houses. And so she has ears everywhere. And again, this is what I was speaking about when it comes to whether or not the sisterhood is good or bad. Now, in some circles, you can say that they're good because they get to oversee all of the bad parts of the great houses and also of the insurgents. So they're the only ones that should have the power, and they should be the ones that hold all the keys to the future of the Imperium. And some people might think that's very good. But on the flip side, some people might think that it's very bad because they have no checks and no balances. They're very authoritarian in a lot of ways. And that could lead to corruption, and that could lead to bad decisions as well. Reminds me a little bit of Captain America Civil War, but also it reminds me of how if you have too much power, then who gets to control those individuals? And again, the Watchmen did that too. Who watches the Watchmen is another analogy to what the Sisterhood is going through during this time. We see here the mystery is starting to reveal itself where Desmond is getting very agitated at Valya. This is the final scene of this episode where Valya uses the voice to try to get Desmond to kill himself because Valya knows how dangerous Desmond is, but he doesn't know that Desmond has this power of resisting the voice. We've seen the voice already in episode 1. We saw it in the Dune movies, how it can be a very powerful tool to manipulate and to have a hold on individuals. But Desmond here just laughs at it and basically scares Valya into shock to see how powerful he is. Now, we still don't know what his intentions are, where he's going to be, what he's all about. We don't know. We just know that he killed 2 people, and we also know that his powers are even more powerful than the Mother Superior. It's very intriguing to find out how he's going to be able to maneuver through all these characters and whether or not he wants to be emperor. And we'll definitely find out what happens to him. Now, it seems as though next week's episode is going to be a flashback, so we might not get any answers to any of those questions that I just posed. Hopefully, you get to enjoy the ride along with me as I review Dune Prophecy. So those are my thoughts about episode 2. We would like to hear what you have to say about Dune Prophecy overall. Please comment down below. Like, share, subscribe for more content like this. And we will see you in the next video. All right. Take care, everybody.